Hello. I wanted to talk today about fear-based fantasies in our daily life. Fear is a part of being human, but as my coach said to me many years ago, the great thing about being alive now is that you can manage and minimize your fear into a smaller and smaller and smaller part of your life. So when I met my wife and we started dating, if I'm honest, I was about 90% coming from fear and strategy and defense and comfort and lots of strategies that didn't have me being present to and about 10% being present. And present can happen on purpose or accidentally, but present is when time disappears. It's when you're in the moment, you're with the flavor, or you're with the experience, or you're with the view. But presence is something that can actually occur at will. So that's the basis of all the work that I do. And having people get present is a challenge because so much of our life is based on strategy and overcoming and compensating for and blah, blah, blah. So the challenge here is that you can have a fear-based life, and that's a possible way of being in life, or you can take on your fears and manage and minimize them into a smaller and smaller part of your life so that most of your life is spent in a designed fashion. You've actually planned for it, you've supported it, resourced it, you've taken the action, you've overcome the obstacles, you've dealt with the challenges, and you're having this fun, satisfying, and powerful experience of life. Now, it's been 31 years since I met my wife. And now I find myself in fear about 1% of the time. So within 3 years of meeting her, we had done enough work, reading and workbooking and seminars, where we were able to flip that around. So I was 90% present and 10% in fear. And it took me, I'm 59 now, so it took me from then until now to get to the 1%. Now, I've been enjoying the 1% for, I'd say, the last 5 or 8 years. Before that, it was 2-3%. But it's an extraordinary life when you are mostly present, and when fear comes up, you're able to manage it. So what are fear-based fantasies, and where do they come from? When we're born present. If you look at a child or an infant, they are just in the world. Everything is awesome. They're kind of putting things in their mouth, experiencing life one flavor at a time, whether it's mud or a wooden toy, but they're present. And then over time, things happen and they begin to build what I call a survival mechanism. And that survival mechanism protects them. It helps them strategize how to get through life. It creates a comfort zone. It creates a mask, an armor, a shell. It creates defenses. It creates sort of compulsive, kind of self-soothing things. Like there's all kinds of things that happen between, say, 0 and 18 after you get kind of a shock of like, no, that presence that you have is not safe. And most of us have that experience where something happened and we started to create a shell around ourselves. And then we invest in that shell to the point where we don't know who we would be without that shell. And that part of ourselves, the survival mechanism, that creates people, circumstances, and things, as well as thoughts, feelings, and body sensations. And all of that contributes to a fear-based fantasy. I can't, I have to, I should, all of the things that seem real, but are not. Now, the easiest way to see this is not in yourself, but it's in others. So you know people who, if they could just get rid of their fear-based fantasies about themselves or life or money or time or love, whatever it is, if they could get rid of that they could have a great life because fundamentally they're a good person. So if it's true about them, it's true about us. And so that's the challenge, is to start to take your fear-based fantasies apart. And the easiest way to do that is to look and see, is this actually true? Is it real? Now, it could be true from your past, but are you still living with those people? Are you still living in that circumstance that had it be true then? Because if not, then maybe it's not true now. but we still use the same survival mechanism to get through our day. Now, here's the weird thing. Whatever our perception is, it attracts things to it to give it substance. And so I dated a woman and she wouldn't get on elevators, which was a little inconvenient at times. And I asked her, why don't you get on an elevator? And she said, well, my great-grandfather was trapped in an elevator and for about 7 hours. And so from that day forward, none of our family gets in elevators. And I said, well, they've gotten better. But in her mind, the fear-based fantasy was, I'm going to get trapped in an elevator like my great-grandfather. And no matter what the logic was, no matter what the developments have been, still that fear-based fantasy connected to elevators was very real for her, was very visceral for her, and was the truth. So that's your challenge, is to start to identify what your fear-based fantasies are and start to take them apart. And there's multiple ways to do that. I'm not going to go into that today, but just take that first step of, what are my fear-based fantasies about love, about time, about money, about people, about my body, my mind, my heart, my spirit. Just look around life and identify what your fear-based fantasies might be. And if you're feeling courageous, ask your community, what do they think your fear-based fantasies are? Because the chances are good they've seen your limitations. They've seen your self-imposed barriers. You're either doing too much or too little. But you resist finding that sweet spot that would have you get into flow and achieve things and be happy. So your people know if you'll ask them. And so make your list, then ask your people. And that's the beginning of taking that apart. Because awareness is the first step. It's not the only step, but it's the first step. So get aware of your fear-based fantasies. Start to notice them in your life. Oh, there's one. There's one. Oh, there it is again. And then we'll talk more about how to take those apart for good. All right. Thanks for your time. Be well.